Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. We're going to be continuing with my reading of the Fire and Blood novel, which here it is. I think overall my opinion of this chapter, now I didn't like this one as much as the previous one. Although there were some thought-provoking stuff here, which I will grant you. I'm not going to lie. And the chapter opens up with war against Marla Sunderland, the attempted usurper of the Vale, with Aegon deciding to send out Torrhen Stark to humiliate him, as well as to show that he has complete control over the North, and to put down this Vale threat, because the navy of the Vale was destroyed by Dragonfire a while back. Whoops. Torrhen delegates the task to Warwick Manderley, who proceeds to pull the job off, and the Sunderlands generally just submit, dethrone Marla, who has her tongue cut out and is sent to the Silent Sisters, the Order of Nuns of Martin's World. Meanwhile, over in the Iron Isles, Lodos is crowned Priest King of the Drowned God, who's obviously a nod to Cthulhu. He's countered by another guy who claims to be the last relative of Harion. He's a distant great-nephew. The revolt is crushed by Aegon, with Lodos jumping into the sea in a fit of religious madness, along with thousands of others, and they perish, which, that said, Aegon also does something incredibly stupid. Now, the Iron Isles have shown themselves to be untrustworthy. All of his vassals are telling him, don't give them another chance. What you do is you move everyone out of the Iron Isles, or you colonize it with other people. You make them vassals and subjects of either the Riverlands, the Westerlands, or the North. Tully, Lannister, and Stark each try to petition for this. But of course, Aegon does not think of long-term policy. He thinks very short-term. It just says, elect your own guy, to the people of the Iron Isles, who then say, all right, we're electing Vicon Greyjoy, who's a very popular guy amongst the Ironborn, which is a sign, do not elect this guy. Do not accept fealty from this guy. But Aegon, sadly, was not known for his brains, because had he had brains, he would have seen this as a problem. And I know I'm coming down hard on Aegon Targaryen, but this guy's held up by a lot of people as just a demigod in this literature. But he just does not strike me as particularly capable or particularly farsighted or at all intelligent. I think that were they to make a drama or a series about him, I think my opinion would pan out. It's easy to conquer when you have dragons. Heaven knows, even today, you'd probably be able to conquer a lot of the world with dragons. He just seems determined to screw up the whole Iron Isles thing. Now, he ends up joining up with Rhaenys, who's over there just burning a lot of places down, capturing a lot of forts. He does the same, but he splits his forces. He sends Orys with 1,000 guys up the Boneway. It's theorized maybe 30,000 men with 2,000 knights and 3,000 lords up the Prince's Pass. Now, what results against these forces are Fabian tactics, and they are reduced to starvation, with Aegon just going on ahead and burning what he can and what he wants, which, that's a good tactic on both sides to an extent. Aegon did not think of the desert, and I'm going to defend it a little, just in that he's never encountered this kind of region. He's never had to fight here, and he's trying to pack his forces as much down there because he knows he can outnumber the enemy. And if he doesn't outnumber them, that could come back to bite him because he's fighting on their turf. You need to outnumber these people on their own turf. I'm not sure he had 30,000 men and 2,000 knights. Not sure he had it, but my argument's just based on a lot of histories having people jump up either their own numbers or the enemies, depending on their motive. This could be them trying to showcase how majestic Aegon's forces were, which would be sound royal policy on the royal historian's parts. As to the Yellow Toad, so to speak, she would flee from Rhaenys, who would report her overall successes. Rosby would become Steward of Dorne. And there were others nominated to all the posts in Dorne, with Aegon enfeoffing a lot of men. Most of them all die. Harlan Tyrell and a lot of his men who try to go to support Rosby or at least avenge him, they disappear into the desert, never to be seen again. Though it's possible they didn't. And by that I mean, no, there's no way. I'm being sarcastic. They're all dead. Now, 7 more years followed of war. What's notable is that in 6 AC, Orys Baratheon was captured, and in 7 AC, he'd be ransomed. Him and a lot of his men had their sword arms cut off. as a nod to Jaime Lannister losing his hand to some brigands when Catelyn Stark stupidly let him go, when he said, "Pretty please let me go." You have Rhaenys, who's dumb enough to get herself captured after her dragon is knocked out of the skies. Well, it's possible she died, but I would propose that it's more likely that yes, her legs were shattered from the fall, but that she survived somehow. And contrary to what some others might say, I think Dorne probably actually did give her potions and healed her back up as much as they could, because they've got good reason to keep her healthy for a while. Now, they'll imprison her, and they will likely humiliate her and torture her later, but I've got two theories here, and I'll get to them in a minute. But for the moment, the Dornish would wage a series of assassinations and blood feuds between them and Aegon and those on his side. You would have 3 attacks by Aegon, and you would have Visenya who'd lead one. But in 13 AC, Maria Martell would die in her bed. Unusual in Martin's world, given that everybody always seems to be killed rather than dying of natural causes in any way. This is a criticism I do have of his world. There's not enough people dying of natural causes. It's very weird. That really does not make it make sense in some ways if you compare it to actual history, like a lot of people seem to want to do. If you like his world the way it is, love it the way it is. Don't listen to me on that nitpicking issue. And you know what? There are some characters who should be assassinated, like Tywin Lannister. Him being assassinated by Tyrion makes complete sense. I like that. Ned Stark, Robert Baratheon, Robb Stark being assassinated makes sense to my mind. Well, I might open those up for later videos. Now, the thing is, Nymor Martell sends his successor in with a peace delegation to King's Landing, and she's sent to negotiate with a letter. Visenya and Oris Baratheon want her either killed or her right hand chopped off. Oakheart, who's had relatives murdered and mistreated by the Dornish, would end up wanting to inflict similar punishment on Daria. Thankfully, nobody listens to that hothead. Aegon, though, is by this point a broken, shattered shadow of a man, is given a letter. We're not informed of what it says, and he flies off and then comes back and accepts peace with Dorne under rather humiliating terms for him, considering this is essentially a concession of total defeat and that he has no claim over Dorne when his original goal was to conquer them. I'm not saying that he should push forward. No, I would not want him to. If I were a peasant or even a lord, I would say this is not a fruitful conflict. But you need to preserve an image of regality and of coming out on top in this sort of war. And Aegon completely fails to do so. The thing is, we have to understand his psychological frame of mind. He apparently loved Rhaenys. She was hinted to have died. For all his anger, anger burns bright, if briefly, and he was just left shattered by the loss of the woman he loved. I think that what was written in that letter was one of two things. Either one, Rhaenys had been violated and dying or something, and it would be a mercy just to put an end to her. But then you have to consider Martin's literature. He has a lot of unrequited love in his literature. And this has to do with his own background, with having suffered a lot of heartbreak, unrequited love, apparently. And I'm not saying that out of judgment. I'm not judging him. It's very understandable. It must be heartbreaking to have gone through that. I think that Rhaenys was seduced during her time with the Dornish. And this would be in line with the cunning Dornish. I think that they seduced her. She probably developed Stockholm Syndrome and started maybe a family in Dorne. Because we don't know who the next heir of Dorne is after Daria, what became of her son. We don't know when Daria was exactly born. We don't know a lot. It might be that one of her brothers or maybe someone from the Hellholt. But I think that one possibility is that Rhaenys wrote that letter, pleading with her brother to stop attacking Dorne. Not for her own death, but for him to stop attacking Dorne. And that this broke Aegon completely at last. He was already mostly broken, now he's completely broken. Now, this is just me suggesting one way of reading it. It's a possible theory, but if you don't like it, go with the other theory. I like the other one more, to be quite honest. But tell me what you think in the comments section. Do you agree with either one of my theories? Don't forget to blast that like and that subscribe button with Dragonfire if you enjoyed this video.